Hi, and welcome to the Bruce Channel. I'm Bruce, and several times over the last several shows, mostly since the beginning of the year, it seems as though I've been opening the show almost every week saying, wow, lots going on, lots to talk about, and that has never been more true than today. So here we go. And I guess we have to begin with, just since last week's show, there have been two more mass shootings, Michigan and Kansas. I have friends from outside the U.S. and they ask me, what the hell is with you people? And I don't have an answer for them. I don't. And then there's the weather. Early in the week, tropical cyclone Winston hit the Fiji Islands, dozens dead, likely more will still be found, making it more striking or even perhaps ominous. It's another on the list of hottest, driest, biggest, strongest that we seem to be racking up annually anymore. This was the strongest tropical cyclone, what we would call a hurricane, ever in the southern hemisphere. Peak winds over 180 miles an hour, that's Cat 5. Now, that is not proof of global warming, but given that tropical storms feed off warm waters, it is evidence. Proof and evidence are two different things, but this joins other evidence. Also this week it was noted that sea level is now rising at the fastest rate in 2,800 years. All right, that would also be evidence. How did they know how fast it was rising 2,800 years ago? Anyway, meanwhile, closer to home, so spring tornado season has begun. Early this week, the Gulf Coast got hit. Then midweek, it passed through here. I only got strong thunderstorms, but there were tornadoes not terribly far away up in Virginia. There were also some in Florida. So this is it. We're in the season, tornado season. And, March, spring doesn't even hit until March. Of course, March starts in a couple days, I know. Okay. Oh, and this. 2 shows ago, I mentioned that the Sunday morning forecast, it was February, was for almost single digits. It would have been a record, but it was pretty cold. We didn't quite get the record. But 1 week ago, look what's happening. The dandelions are up. So are the daffodils. And so now I guess I have to begin the mowing season. I have to wait till the ground gets less soggy. All right, so you may have picked up on the fact that I'm a bit of a political junkie and am an amateur historian vis-a-vis presidential elections. It's been said by me and by others that there's never been a year like this in anyone's memory, certainly. And it may be unlike any ever in all of our history. So I mentioned last week that I was finding this guy, Ted Cruz, Senator Cruz, more and more distasteful. Now, the original falderall that made me think that was as the Iowa caucuses were beginning, the beginning of February, incorrect tweets of Dr. Carson's pulling out was sent by Senator Cruz and some of his staffers. Then came ads linking Marco Rubio and President Obama, and I'm sure that Marco Rubio wouldn't think he's a Republican. The president's a Democrat. So when I said that last week, though, I hadn't even seen this one. So I think that's a bit of a dirty trick, and Senator Rubio has said so also. Then both Donald Trump and Senator Rubio said that Senator Cruz was the biggest liar they'd ever seen. They have a vested interest in saying that. They are competing with him for the Republican nomination. And it certainly wouldn't surprise you if you heard a Democrat say that either. But Nicole Wallace, this is the former communications chief for President George W. Bush, senior advisor for the McCain campaign in 2008. This is a Republican with no direct skin in the game. And this is what she said about Senator Cruz.
Cruz is despised, and it's because of the flaws of his character. I mean, he has taken 6 positions on Intel, not because he believes them, but because at one point he thought that Paul was going to be his greatest competition for the Republican nomination, so he took positions to appeal to the Paul base, and then when he saw that, maybe Rubio or someone more establishment-y would get it, he tried to tack back to protect himself, and, karma is a you-know-what, and Cruz has caught up with him now.
Anyway, months ago, I flat out predicted, Donald Trump wouldn't be the nominee. That was not a very brave or courageous, that's redundant, prediction. Everybody was saying the same thing. How could a guy who insults everyone, a genuine war hero, Senator McCain, reporter with his disability, a guy who gives out the private cell phone number of a U.S. senator. Anyway, I don't want to believe he could be the nominee, but it is now impossible to say it's impossible. So look at this more recent cover from the New Yorker magazine. Former presidents, and not nobodies like James Buchanan, presidents with real gravitas watching Trump on television, and they're like sick to their stomach. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, in Nevada, Hillary won, but only by 5 points. And given that she led Bernie Sanders by way more than that, double digits, just a few months ago. All right, so their primary in South Carolina is this Saturday, after my deadline. Demographically, it's a virtual lock that Hillary is a big winner. All right, so a wee bit more on the Supreme Court. The Senate is still saying that they aren't going to consider, they won't talk to anyone that the president nominates. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2 says that the president, with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, counsels, judges of the Supreme Court. Not ought to appoint, not shall appoint, except in their last year, shall appoint. This is a little, this is far-fetched, but I almost wonder if the whole plan is instead, hey, don't appoint, we aren't going to consider, so then he doesn't. That's not going to happen. But if he didn't, then the House could come back and impeach him, or they could try to impeach him because he clearly would have violated one of his constitutional duties. Is that too far out? Yeah, I hope so too. Oh, retired Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. She was appointed by the Republican everyone says they most admire, Ronald Reagan. She says the president should nominate and the Senate should advise and consent. But, what does she know? But not to say that political hypocrisy doesn't occur on both sides. Watch this clip from 1992.
As a result, it is my view that if a Supreme Court justice resigns tomorrow or within the next several weeks, or resigns at the end of the summer, President Bush should consider following the practice of a majority of his predecessors and not name a nominee until after the November election is completed.
Now, it maybe ought to be considered that that speech was given in June of 92, only a couple of weeks before the Democratic National Convention. So fully into the election process. It wasn't February. And there was actually no nomination being considered. Another point, Justice Scalia was known as an originist. He believed that the Founding Fathers had the final word on everything, which I disputed and talked about why last week's show. But since then, I've learned this, and I have to laugh. Who were the Founding Fathers? Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, George Washington, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, right? George Washington is our first president, serves 2 terms, and then retires. John Adams is our second president. But he was denied a second term. He lost in his re-election bid. He was defeated by Thomas Jefferson. After that election, but before Jefferson took office, after the election, before Jefferson took office, John Adams nominated John Marshall as the Chief Justice. He was confirmed he went on to be the longest serving Chief Justice. I think that's fascinating. Well, that was certainly playing dirty, but there you go. That's what the Founding Fathers did. They played dirty too. One last word about the Supreme Court. Just when you think you've heard or seen everything, I'm only going to play a very brief part of this. You can Google it and listen to the whole thing if you wish. Rick Wiles believes in the end times being at hand. So Google Rick Wiles, Judge Scalia. The whole thing plays. The clip is under 7 minutes.
So they deliberately left the pillow on his face.
Why?
As a message to everybody else. Don't mess with us. We can murder a justice and get away with it.
So basically, he says that Luciferians currently run the government and murdered Justice Scalia. That's the gist of it. On part of his logic, he says this much earlier in the clip, maybe the first minute or two, but part of his logic is Justice Scalia died on February the 13th, and that is the 44th day of the year. President Obama is the 44th president, which about clinches it, doesn't it? All right, so now that was recorded well over a week ago. It was in advance of a letter that we learned of this week from Justice Scalia's physician, which listed among his ailments, he had sleep apnea, he had degenerative joint disease, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, he had high blood pressure, and Mr. Wiles may not have known any of that. He might not have known that Justice Scalia smoked. But come on, he was overweight, he was 79 years old. Overweight, 79 years old, Mr. Wiles nevertheless thinks it's more likely the president had him killed. You know, one of the best lines I ever heard in my life, several years ago. It was a morning radio show. The two DJs were talking about professional wrestling, and one of them said something like, wow, you know, it's amazing that so many people think it's real. And the other one popped back and said, yeah, but what's really scary is some of these people vote.
Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. For most of my adult life, I weighed a little over 100 pounds, not much more than in this picture taken when I was about 17 and considering becoming a jockey. But as is often true, once I crossed into my 40s, extra weight came and it stayed. For years I tried to lose, instead gained, and ended up 153 pounds. And I'm embarrassed to show you this video. Then I learned that it isn't about calories and exercise, but instead it's about what you eat. You might say, sure, ice cream makes you fat. But there were surprises, things like orange juice not being such a wise choice if you're trying to lose weight. So I just made some basic changes to what I ate, not how much, and the weight just fell off. Now, nearly 3 years later, it is still off. And don't misunderstand, I'm eating foods I like, not bamboo shoots. Friends ask me how I did it so often, I put it in a book. It's available as an ebook for all platforms, and the print edition is available at barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. Hey, you can shrink too.
Okay, welcome back. You can write to us at the Bruce Channel at yahoo.com and watch all of our episodes either at our Facebook page or at tinyurl.com/Bruce Channel. Okay, so we lost some notable individuals in the last week or so. Probably the least well-known was a man by the name of Samuel Willenberg. Mr. Willenberg was 93, and he was the last survivor of the infamous Treblinka Nazi death camp. Now, you know, someone had to be last of the survivors, but just getting to be one of the survivors was infinitesimally a small chance. 67 people survived the camp. Some 870,000 plus died there. He was born in Częstochowa, Poland. He arrived at Treblinka. He was 19 years old. The day he arrived, he was the only one who wasn't gassed. He fibbed. He told him he was a bricklayer. They thought, good, manual labor, muscles, that might prove useful. Ultimately, his job was to sort through the belongings of those who were gassed. And imagine this. He discovered his sister's coat. It had unique qualities. She'd outgrown it. Her mother added some green velvet to the sleeves to lengthen them. He goes through and finds that, and that's when he discovered he had no more family. After the war, he married a daughter who lived in Israel. We should once in a while remember just how outrageous we human beings can be as a species. Rest in peace, Mr. Willenberg. Rest in peace. And
Young love, first love, filled with crude emotion. Young love.
we lost the Southern gentleman, Sonny James, who was, by all accounts, a kind and polite man for all of his life. In fact, he got his sobriquet, the Southern gentleman, because of his good manners. He was 87 years old and died in a hospice. He was surrounded by his loved ones. Now, you could recognize any number of his hits. Young Love, of course, and Since I Met You, Baby. What you might not know is that over a 5-year period, he had a string of 16 consecutive hits go to number one. He had 25 number one hits, but 16 in a row. That is something nobody else, no solo artist, has ever done. Not Elvis, not Sinatra, not nobody. So in the music business, he was a giant. And he wasn't the only giant we lost. Just days earlier, but too late for my deadline, we lost the 1961 winner of the Pulitzer Prize and winner of the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2007. And of course, you know I'm speaking of Harper Lee, whose book, To Kill a Mockingbird, was first published in 1960, and it reflected her time growing up in the Old South. That became an immediate bestseller. And 2 years later, they made it into a movie. It starred Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch and Brock Peters as the unjustly accused Tom Robinson. Appearing as Boo Radley in his first role in a feature film, young Robert Duvall. I have my own fondness for To Kill a Mockingbird because I played the judge. No, not in the movie. In the movie, it was played by Paul Fix, who was pretty well known as the sheriff or the marshal on The Rifleman. Did you know he was also on Star Trek? Anyway, so no, I didn't play the judge in the movie, but I played the judge in a theater production, and I remember it pretty well. I tousled up my hair, made it wild, and made it white. Think Mark Twain. I can recall very well that I was extremely apprehensive about the role because I'd have to speak Southern, and I didn't know I could. I think I watched My Cousin Vinny many times. Fewer than a dozen, but many times. And I watched and I listened to Fred Gwynne. And it is because of that role that I learned to, and can still speak when necessary, Southern speak. You know, it is true, as for my British accent, that it is not necessarily authentic. I have lived in North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama. They do not all sound alike, but you know what? I can't tell you the difference.
There's nothing I can do to clear it or make it go away.
Now you listen to me. You got until tomorrow to show me what you're made of, or I'll have your ass out of that office. You hear me?
Okay, so I knew that last year the movie Concussion was coming out. I read about it prior to its coming out, and I don't pay a lot of attention to when movies come out because I virtually never go to the movies. I am spoiled. DVDs, Blu-ray, streaming, it's just too convenient. It's easy to bail out if I don't like it. It's easy to pause while I get something to eat or drink, and whatever I get to eat or drink costs like, 5% of what I pay at the movies? I can pause and finish it tomorrow or answer the phone. And you understand what I'm saying. I know you do. I'm actually sometimes puzzled why movie theaters can even stay in business, but I suppose I'm glad that they are. Anyway, back on point. So there's this movie I knew of, Concussion. And of course, well, not of course, maybe you don't know, but it deals with how the NFL deals with, or doesn't deal with, concussions. Actually, the NFL Combine is going on this weekend, so I digress. All right, so Concussion comes out last year. Will Smith plays the doctor, and I know this. I know it's about the doctor. I actually saw a documentary, so I checked. No, can't stream it, but it's on disc, so I put it at the top of my queue on Netflix. It wasn't at the top because I had some other things I needed to watch, like season 6 of Downton Abbey. But, it did make it to the top. It arrived. The other night I put it in. I sat back and I went right to the main menu. I wasn't in the mood for previews. So the movie starts and I'm watching, and I know it's the story of the doctor, Dr. Bennett Omalu. And he is the forensic pathologist. He's the one that brought this brain damage to the attention of everyone. This brain damage among ex-NFLers. So it didn't open on a football field, and I wasn't worried because it's the story of the doctor, right? But I'm watching. It's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, probably less than, probably before I got to the 15-minute mark. But nevertheless, several minutes elapsed. I didn't see Will Smith. I didn't see anything going on. It didn't make any sense. So I paused. I pick up the little envelope that the disc comes in, and it says, when a blow to the head with a baseball prompts lesbian housewife Abby to shake up her suburban life and her dull marriage, she buys a fixer-upper in Manhattan and seeks excitement by becoming A prostitute. That'll get you excited. So, all right. I put it back and sent it. I know that a title cannot be copyrighted. I guess I needed reminding. Okay, so a week ago, something magical happened. Truly magical. It'll give you goosebumps. ABC had a special called The Wonderful World of Disney, Disneyland 60. It's been about 60 years since Walt Disney opened the first Disneyland. But what they did that night was they performed many things, many musical numbers. And you know, when you think about it, over the years there have been a lot of songs, a lot of music that Disney brought to our attention. Zippity-doo-dah, Whistle While You Work, Colors of the Wind, much more recently. So, they're doing this wonderful dance routine from Mary Poppins. Derek Hough from Dancing with the Stars, I think. He's in the lead role. He pops, he's dancing, he's singing, he pops back, he opens the door.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dick Van Dyke.
90-year-old Dick Van Dyke is there. He comes through the door. The audience had no idea this was coming. It wasn't expected, but almost as one, they leaped to their feet to stand and honor the guy who did that step in time about more than 50 years ago. As I said, it was a magical moment, and you can Google it. Dick Van Dyke, Step in Time, ABC special. Google it. It'll warm the cockles of your heart. Finally this, and I apologize, although it took place a long time ago, I'm just now getting to it. I mean a really long time ago. As Donald Trump might have said, 2 Corinthians went into a bar. All right, so no, way long. Billions and billions and billions of years ago. See, 2 black holes went into a bar. Now, actually what happened, 2 black holes collided. And when they did, they proved Einstein's theory of general relativity. Actually, they didn't prove it when they collided. It's only now that we're getting the effects of that collision. It finally reached us from billions and billions of light years away. So, literally, this collision took place, literally, long ago in a galaxy far away. Now, they've got these cool thingamabobbies. There's 2 of them called Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. LIGOs, for those of us who know. Anyway, so there are 2 tubes, and they're 4 kilometers long, and there's a mirror, and it bounces light back and forth 400 times. Makes the distance 400 times 4, 1,600 kilometers. And at the end of that time, they run back into each other, and if they're at the same speed, they cancel each other out, and it's dark. But see, long ago in a galaxy far away, the black holes collided, and they created a ripple in gravity, which is what Einstein predicted would happen. We were never able to see it until just a little while back, a couple weeks ago. And the LIGO, actually it's 2 LIGOs, because there's one in the state of Washington and one in Louisiana. And that's to ensure that if there is something, it's not a local fluke. It had to be measured on both of them. So, is this not cool? I mean, this is just unimaginably cool. Gravity has ripples. From billions and billions and billions of light years away, we discover that gravity has ripples. Yeah, well, my life doesn't feel so much changed either. Anyway, so Oscars tonight, and then for the rest of the week, I'll bid you watch out for gravity ripples. Don't get knocked over by one, assuming that you can successfully avoid a gravity ripple. I then hope that your upcoming week is the best one you've ever had.